Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Here, a salute, another salute, and for you, a double salute. I hope you are having a good December. I'm starting a minute or so late. My computer crashed just as I was about to start, but maybe this is your first time watching, so let me explain what you're watching. My name is Chris. I'll be your host today, and I promise from this point on, no glitches at all. No glitches. This is the weekly Spinner Rack, a variety show about comic book stuff from the past week. I'm going to talk about the comic book news of the week. I'm going to talk about some of the comics that came out. I'm even going to draw later tonight some of my own stuff. I started inking something. There's a little tease. But before any of that, I'm actually excited because we have a guest tonight, a guest who I happen to be a fan of and who I actually got to meet a couple months ago, very briefly. He has been an artist for Marvel and DC. You've seen his work at Image and Dark Horse over the years. Now he's got an upcoming new book through Dynamite with writer Tom Sniegoski, Herculoids, a cartoon that I also watched a bunch growing up. Please give a kind welcome to artist Craig Rousseau. Craig, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well as well. And that is the answer I hope for. It's always like, I'm going to ask, I'm going to be polite. How are you? And then someone's like, oh, well, my cat died today. I'm like, what are you doing here? Thank you very much for giving us some of your time tonight. I don't know if you remember, but I did briefly say hello at Rose City Comic Con just a couple months ago.
I was trying to put a face to the name, and when I clicked the link, I said, "Oh yes, we met in Rose City." So it all came back together.
Yeah, I sincerely, I've been following you on social media since that's been a thing. I remember reading your comics. I would say somewhere around 2001 was where I started to get introduced to your work. You've been working in comics for a minute at this point.
For a long time, it feels like. Yes.
Well, hopefully it's been good. I'm kind of curious, actually. You bring that up. Like, did you always intend to get to comics as an artist, or were there any other artistic paths you had in mind as you were growing up and developing your skills?
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell the story time and time again when people ask. I loved comics growing up, for sure, but I didn't think it was a viable career path. And eventually, when I was trying to figure out where I was going in my college track, it was either going to be physics or art. And it just worked out that I said, you know what, I'll just stick with the art. I like it. And then I went to University of Massachusetts in Dartmouth for illustration, and had a whole bunch of different classes about different styles of illustration. And I thought maybe magazine illustration or children's book or animation or, articles for like newspaper illustrations, catalog illustrations, but it wasn't really comic book stuff until it became my senior project. And I said, I just like comics. I just want to do comics. And one of my classmates had a friend who worked at Marvel and was able to say, hey, I can look at your samples and give you some feedback. So he kind of got me on that path to working in comics. And he actually introduced me to my first assistant editor over at DC Comics. So it was kind of a weird way of how it all unfolded.
Everybody has a different path to getting into comics, but the thing you realize is that, like, it isn't the biggest field, so networking is frequently a part of somebody's past. At some point, networking was like a
absolutely
piece of that.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. Go ahead. I didn't mean to talk over you.
Oh, no. It is one of those things where I go to a convention and say, well, how do you break in? And I say, A, it was 30 odd years ago now, and B, it's not going to be the same situation for you. It's just everyone has a different way of getting in, and I can only give you my advice and hope for the best for you.
I that's totally fair. People ask me that stuff too, and I'm like, well, look, I'm really just a YouTuber at the end of the day, so I'm not even the best person to ask. But I'm like, if you tell me what your goal is, because different people have different goals. But what's interesting of what you just said is I'm also from Massachusetts, and lots of my high school classmates went to various UMass. I never realized that they had an illustration curriculum as a major, or I would have honestly considered that. Was that really like just a major you could select, or did you put that major together yourself based on like putting together
No,
classes?
it was a major back then, and
That's so cool.
they had an illustration department and they had a fine arts department. So they kind of, kind of butted heads because illustration is much more of a practical field where fine art painting was you'd spend months on a painting. And I ended up double majoring. I did both. So I kind of got into both those situations. And one of my professors had done a lot of sports greeting cards and very whimsical things. And eventually he had done this little storybook that got turned into a Muppets Christmas special. So I find that fascinating. So he
Wow.
was kind of pushing me towards these. Look at storybooks. That's kind of fun. And then, but I ended up getting back to comics. And now I know one of my friends is working there as a professor teaching an illustration class, and he was doing a lot of comic stuff for Hasbro, design work and stuff like that. So
That makes sense. Yeah, right. They're a huge employer over in Rhode Island, not too far
yeah.
away. Yeah, I don't think we're too far off in age. So we would have been growing up when, like, Hasbro was pumping out GI Joe and Transformers and stuff,
Absolutely.
and I was just like I was always amused. I don't know if you remember this, if you were into GI Joe, but I'd read the file cards, and maybe 1 out of 10 of them had like some connection to Rhode Island, and I started to like twig that there was a reason for that. But yeah,
Exactly.
so yeah, you've worked with a lot of different people. One of the earliest things that I remember reading is a creator-owned book that you did, Perhapanauts, which I always love talking up. It's just if folks haven't read it, I'll just briefly say it is sort of like a monster hunting bureau, but maybe not as dark as like Hellboy. And I love
Yeah.
Hellboy. You've worked on Hellboy.
Mhm.
Maybe a little more whimsical, or a little bit more of like, a little more humor. It's been a while since you've done it, but do you ever still talk to your writer, like Todd
Oh,
DeSago?
Todd,
You do.
Todd and
Would
I,
would you
yeah,
guys ever
we're
revisit
best
that?
friends. We actually slowly but surely are. We started at Dark Horse. We
Yeah.
self-published, I think, our first issue. Very first one we self-published with a local newspaper printer. Then we went to Dark Horse, and then we went to Image for a while, and then we
You did
kickstarted
Kickstarter early on,
a
basically.
graphic novel through them, and then we had republished with a new printer a couple years ago, new imprint, Electric Black
Uh-huh.
over at Scout. And
Right, right.
that just did not work out well. So we got our rights back, but we've been slowly
Good.
putting the books back together in our own library, but doing new stories. And we've got two or three more that we definitely have been working on that will kind of wrap up our whole story and a
Oh,
nice
that's lovely.
cohesive story. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think the Chupacabra character is my favorite overall
Yeah.
design, but like you have a knack for monsters, so it like and that's a little bit of a recurring motif in your career. You did a bunch of young Hellboy, Herculoids, definitely monsters. Is monsters something that like appeals, or is that coincidence that you keep ending up on monsters?
I'm good at it and I like it. So yeah,
Yeah, you are.
I loved watching the Creature Double feature back when I was a kid on channel 56 out of Boston. And
WLVI.
that's it. And you know, the Parappanauts was Todd saying, "What do you want to do?" I had worked on a Telos book with him, and that was more
I
sword and
know.
sorcery and fantasy, and that was Michael Ringo's, baby. And so I don't want to even try to do more of that because I feel like I'm in his shadow. So let's do something
Mm.
completely different. And we came up with, we loved watching In Search of and all those shows about Bigfoots and those mystery stories. And Todd was fascinated by it. So we started coming up with it. And in my mind, I thought, well, let's design them as toys or as cartoons or as action
Oh,
figures or
okay.
so because that's what I would like to see at some point. So they're all designed in a way that I have fun drawing and yes, we had one of our friends that actually made little something over here. Oh, you can't quite see it.
Yeah, no, you can see it pretty well. That's the Ghost
Little
Girl.
Yeah, little 3D figurines that we had done up. They were kind of fun. We
I
haven't
mean,
done
I
anything
think I
with them
saw
yet.
that you did a plush back in the day
We did.
of them, but
Yeah.
yeah, like the 3D figurines are a good idea too. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully, like if you do this like sort of wrap up, you would consider mixing in a little merch for
I
a
would love to.
little
Yeah.
extra. Well, I just wanted to talk about that. I mean, and I think it's so cool that like you did a creator-owned project so early on in your career and like got that under your belt so that like you could like compare and contrast all the different like sort of ways you've worked. This new book you've got at Dynamite with Tom, uh, I went to like look at your bibliography, see like fill in the gaps that I might have. And the only thing I saw that you'd done at Dynamite was something like 10 years ago, like an anthology. Is that correct? Is it like, or have you
Yeah,
done other things at Dynamite that I missed?
I've done other stuff there.
Okay,
My when I was working at Marvel years and years and years ago, one of my editors, Nate Cosby, was there, and then he moved over to Dynamite a while back. So
sure.
through him, I had done a Red Sonja miniseries
Okay,
that oddly enough they said, "Hey, we've got the story," but I said, I'm not really that good at drawing beautiful women or stuff. Like, he's like, no, it's a little kid and a talking like warthog and some trolls and giants. I said, that is the book for me. I will do that.
that's good.
And so I did that book. I've been doing a lot of covers, like Lilo and Stitch covers, and
Mhm.
lately I've done some Zootopia stuff for them. But
Saw that.
as a regular ongoing book, this is my first one at Dynamite in a while.
Very cool. And then, of course, your collaborator on this Herculoids book specifically is writer Tom Sniegoski, and I believe you guys have done at least Young Hellboy together. Is there anything else that you've worked on together?
We have done two Young Hellboy books so far.
Right.
There's more stuff cooking, uh,
Good.
and we were actually working on a creator-owned. We are working on a creator-owned graphic novel for an imprint over at Mad Cave.
Yeah. Sure.
That's why I
Oh,
was getting all
paper
these.
cuts.
I think it's I think it's going to be paper cuts. Yeah, it's a
Might be
creator-owned
paper
story,
cuts for sure.
and when we came up with the idea, it's like it's a Saturday morning cartoon comic book, and it's got like these big ideas and big superhero stuff and big action like Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and we're having a blast doing it. And then Tom mentions, "Oh, I pitched the Herculoids." I said, I would like to draw that. And he said, "You're already doing two books for me." I said, "I'll do three. Let's put my name in the ring and see what happens." So uh, I'm juggling different projects right now with Tom, but we have a very similar sensibility in what we like. We like the big monsters and some of the funny stuff, some of the weird stuff that Tom throws in there. I love it.
That's so cool. Yeah, it seems like you've got good ongoing relationships with several people. Like, you were talking about Todd, Tom. And you know what? Comics is like acting or something. Sometimes it's dry and sometimes it's busy. Maybe better to slightly overcommit and just go for it than to like pass up an opportunity and then like, something else falls through. I don't know. Like I'm sure it's a lot of hard work. Do you have a regular schedule for yourself? Are you good about like that, or do you just sort of do it as need be?
I should be better about it at this, but it also I'd gotten into the habit of just doing it when I felt like it for a
Okay.
while, because I didn't have, like with the Paraponauts, we'd done Kickstarters with maybe a 10-page story or a 20-page story here, and I didn't have a whole tight deadline. But once Young Hellboy kicked back in, and now Herculoids and the other book, I do have to finish up at least a page or page and a half a day. So I am working on a better schedule, but I find myself working later into the night and putting on TV or audiobooks just to keep me company.
I'm sure it's a challenge because you've got to balance that with like, family obligations and stuff like that. But I'm excited for this, honestly, because I definitely grew up watching reruns of a lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff.
Mhm.
And without even knowing it at the time, I definitely gravitated to the ones that were like designed by Alex Toth, you know? And it's kind of cool that
Absolutely.
Dynamite has like all the big ones right now. Did you also watch Herculoids growing up?
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah,
I, in
it
my
was a
head,
blast.
I remembered it, as being this amazing show, and it was. And I went out and I bought the Blu-ray when we were talking with Tom, and I watched every episode a couple of times. I realized there's really just one plot for every
Yeah.
episode was aliens show up at the
Yep.
planet and they fight them off, and
And they
Tom's
use
like,
the
well,
same powers every time.
but I love it. I'll put it on the background and watch for hours.
Yeah. The designs themselves, though, are great. I hope that that's fun. Any character you've gravitated towards, like that ends up being a little more fun to work on than another?
I mean, I love them all, but
Yeah.
I've really gotten to like drawing Zoc, the
Oh,
flying dragon. I think
yeah.
it's a really interesting design and fun and cute, but powerful at the same time.
Yeah. That's awesome. I legit just remember growing up and doing the Herculoids monster voices for my own amusement. I don't know. I'm embarrassing myself, but I legit just loved the sounds and I loved the designs. You're right that the story wasn't deep, but I guess that will hopefully give you guys room to explore new things, give a little more depth to the family dynamics or the origins of some of these monsters or aliens.
I
I don't
think
know.
you hit the nail on the head there. And we're both real, fans of the property. We love the cartoon. We love the characters. We love the designs. We love the look of it. We love everything about it. So being able to play in that sandbox has been a lot of fun and pay tribute to it and not reinvent the wheel. I've seen some books that say we're doing a radical new take on character X or Y, and I don't want that. I want to say what would another episode of the show have been if we were allowed to do it. So that's how I think we're kind of approaching it.
Alex Toth himself, were you a fan? Was he ever like, an influence at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm,
You have the Super Friends stuff and Johnny Quest and all those designs are just
yeah.
so simple and clean and
I
beautiful. And
know.
then some of my first work at DC was uh, I started on Impulse, but then
Right.
I'd gone over and done Gotham Adventures for a while, and then 2 years of Batman Beyond. So I was really influenced by all the animation style. At that point, it was Bruce
Mm,
Timm, but going back and looking at all those earlier cartoons and the simplicity of line that they were able to get, I'm fascinated by
I
how
am too.
you can do a drawing with 500 lines, or if you can figure out what those right 5 lines are
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and get away with that.
I remember reading stuff like that growing up, like Frank Miller saying, like, my goal at that time was like simplify as few lines as possible. And he was citing guys like, Will Eisner, but I always saw it in Alex Toth. The cool thing about Alex Toth, a lot of us know his designs from these cartoons, but if you go back and look at like some of his actual like comic books, like, I don't know, Black Canary, the storytelling is also like really top tier. Like Toth is super underrated in comics specifically, and I know that's crazy to say, but I think he is. Um, what about? I look at your art, and you also have a beautiful, like clean line style. It's not quite like the French ligne claire, but it's very like straightforward. It's not like lots and lots of rendered hatching and cross hatching and stuff.
Mhm.
Are there any influences outside of comics that like pushed you in that direction? Because I can think of one or two that might be, but I'd rather hear it from you. What they?
There was, and I don't even remember the name at this point, but I remember finding some illustration books that I was just fascinated by in college, and besides Aubrey Beardsley and even some of the Gustav Klimt style of
Oh,
his
okay.
line work and some of the Art Nouveau, I really
Yes.
enjoyed that. And there's one particular illustrator that at one point my dad had been subscribing to like a step-by-step illustration magazine that I'd gotten, and I was fascinated by this line work of this artist. It was so uh, elegant in its simplicity, I think is how I would describe it. And I look at that and I look at the cartoons, I look at artwork like that, even Patrick Nagel and the
Mm.
simplicity and taking the line work and keeping it as simple as possible. And
It's
also because I can't use a brush. I've tried inking with a brush. I've tried with a
oh,
pen,
okay.
and it feels clunky and sloppy. So I figured out, well, if I can't do it, I'm not going to do it. I'll do something I can figure out.
Yeah, I mean, you got to lean into like what feels right for you ultimately. But it is kind of funny when you think about how much of an abstraction it is to draw outlines or like the shape of a nose, even like as compared to like rendering the different sort of gradients between them. It's such a funny way to represent things, and yet it feels so natural. I don't know. So you've got Herculoids coming up, and I've got an ad actually for it that I'll be playing in a little bit. Anything else we should be keeping our eyes on from you right now, Craig?
Well, like I said, the last several months I've done the Lilo and Stitch. I've done some variant covers for that, and then
Yep.
the Zootopia books start next year. We are working on more Perhaponaut stuff. We're going to probably kickstart a new book in the spring or so. And then the other book I'm doing with Tom and Janine. And then there's more in the Hellboy universe coming up, I think, too. So I'm keeping pretty busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Like, tell you what, if some of the viewers here are like getting introduced to you or reintroduced to you, do you have any social channels that you're using these days to promote your stuff or like keep people up to date, or just your website?
Yeah, I'm over on Blue Sky. I think it's Craig.Rousseau. And I'm on Facebook, Craig Rousseau. And I have got a website, craigrousseau.com.
And that's actually like, thank you for keeping that up to date, because I did double check that and I was like, yep, he's got his upcoming appearances. He's got recaps of like his recent conventions and stuff like that. I love it.
I find that it's very easy to just post artwork on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. But as we're finding the terrain shifting in social media, I guess you could say, I've made a more concerted effort to start putting artwork back on my website and start to use that as a place to know that it will be there until I screw that up somehow.
It is tricky right now, isn't it, Craig? Because like you keep seeing like an update from like a platform where they're saying like, hey, we might like, have some of the rights to what you post here to get trained on AI, or you just see some of these platforms like moving in a completely different direction, or like the algorithm doesn't favor you. It's a tough thing to keep up with on how best to engage with your audience. So I respect the struggle.
And having to pay for exposure on certain websites or to boost your posts. And so I think a lot of artists that I know have been talking about moving back to websites and newsletters and targeting your audience that want to know what you're doing. Whereas, we did a Kickstarter for a field guide of cryptids earlier, and that was a lot of fun. But we would post every day on Facebook, and we'd post on Instagram, and we put it on, at that point it was Twitter. And Todd and I felt like we were really just annoying everyone we knew. But so many people after the fact would say, oh, I never heard of this. What is that? I wish I would have known. So we're trying to figure out how to get that information to the people directly.
I wish I had an ideal solution. The one thing, though, that you said you're on Blue Sky, and I am too. And I will say, like just in the past couple of weeks, I've been mentioning the various videos or projects that I'm working on. And even though I don't have the biggest following on Blue Sky, I get the highest percentage of engagement there. And it seems like very friendly to artists so far. So it would be nice if it stays that way. We'll see.
Certainly hope so.
I'm trying to be positive. Craig, it was a super pleasure talking to you. I know it's like 3 hours later your time, so I appreciate you giving me some of your evening. I'm looking forward to Herculoids, and hopefully we can talk again sometime in the future.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Have a great night.
You too.
Oh, man. That was a privilege for me and a pleasure. It's always interesting talking to any artist about maybe process and stuff, and I'm always happy to try to help plug a project. But I have to admit that it's a little extra exciting when you just happen to be a fan of something. And I am a fan. I'll just put that out there. I think Craig's so talented, folks. If you haven't read his stuff, I hope I'm introducing you to it. And if you do know his stuff, let's get excited for Herculoids. I think that should be a blast. Tell you what, I was mentioning earlier that I have more to say about Herculoids. I'm just going to bring something up real quick because this episode is sponsored by Herculoids. So that's appropriate. Before I break into the news and drawing and stuff, I've got this to share for you. So let's watch a special little video. Wait. Oh, ha! Hold on. The video is in a different codec than I thought. I literally just got it about 20 minutes before my show went live, and then my computer crashed. So, tell you what, I'm going to, I think I can convert that to a different codec while I also host a show. And why don't I just do a few quick plugs before I break into the news? So, first of all, on this channel, tomorrow, I am giving something that there's no way the YouTube algorithm will enjoy. I am doing a new trash movie bonanza with Jim Mafood. And folks, it is about Madam Web. It is nearly as long as the movie itself. It is a ridiculously long episode. There is no way YouTube will show this to anyone. But I don't care because I had fun with Jim talking about a ridiculous movie. And we talk about the movie itself. We talk about the acting. We talk about the directing choices. We talk about the rewrites and the re-recordings and the reshoots. And we talk about the comics that it's based on. We go over every aspect of this. No one in the world will ever need to do a deeper dive in Madam Web. Nobody needed this in the first place. But all I can say is we did it because it was fun for us. Okay. So, thank you so much, Wayne. I appreciate that. I love doing the interviews. Thank you. The Madam Web episode is coming. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Talk about the 2000. Wait, I don't quite know what that refers to. If YouTube won't show it, then I'll share it to everyone I know. It passed the checks. Like it didn't get copyright claimed. But yeah, there might be quite a bit of Pepsi discussion, actually. Yes. Let's see. The Jamie General Lee edit had me in stitches. I don't know that. Thank you, everybody. This might have been what caused my computer to crash before. I'm trying to open this ad and it's still giving me trouble. Like last time when I opened it, it made my computer crash. I mean, I told Dynamite I'd love to promote this book because I love the artists and the writer and everything. It's just that the file they gave me is not like a normal sort of file. But I'm doing my best here. I really want to share this with you because I think that it's actually a pretty cool ad. I really do. Bear with me. I'm almost done converting it. And then, more plugs for me. Let's see. I would love to mention that on my other channel, Comic Tropes, this is Comic Tropes After Dark, on Comic Tropes, I just uploaded a deep dive interview with Peach Momoko, as well as her husband and art manager, Yo Mutsu. I had a great time talking to them. I think that they were really open and honest and insightful. It was a good challenge too, doing an episode where, Yo did the translating, and then I, for the video, went back and listened to it all and did my best, which isn't perfect, but I did my best to listen to what they were saying, talking to each other in Japanese and transcribing that. So that hopefully you get a little bit more of an insight into what they're talking about. It's at least the gist of what they're talking about. Don't quote me on it. You know what I mean? But anyway, that was a good challenge. It was a good challenge. All right. I think that this might do it. Let's see.
Oh, hi. I didn't hear you come in. I'm Tom Sniegoski, and I am the writer of the brand new series from Dynamite Entertainment based on the Hanna-Barbera classic cartoon series, The Herculoids. The Herculoids will feature stories by me, with art by the amazing Craig Rousseau, colors by the super talented Omi Ramalante, and lettering by the illustrious Taylor Esposito. The Herculoids will feature stunning covers by top artists such as Francisco Mattina, Joseph Michael Linsner, Bjorn Behrens, Philippe Massafera, and Hellboy creator Mike Mignola, as well as series artist Craig Rousseau. I've been a fan of the Herculoids for a very long time, and I know that there are a lot of you out there that feel the same way I do about these characters. So please join me, Craig, Omi and Taylor, Ego, Tundro, Zoc, Gloop, Gleep, Xander, Tara, and Dorno for the new adventures of the Herculoids coming from Dynamite Entertainment. The series is set to release on February 19th, 2025. Be sure to visit your local comic shop to pre-order your copy and secure your chance to dive into this exciting adventure. Thank you.
Nicely done, Tom. I don't think he necessarily knows that that's how I often open comic tropes. I think that was all him. That's awesome. I love those figures that he's got there too. They're so big. Alex Toth had some great designs. Just incredible. I was really excited to get to share that. So let me open something else, which is the news of the week. We are going to have a good time. Let's see. Just setting it all up. This is such a professional show tonight. I hope it's your first. What am I doing? What am I doing with my life? By the way, I definitely last week had a big cough, and I still have a little bit of a one. I promise it is better today than it was 7 days ago. I went to see a doctor. Looks like it was bronchitis that I've had for almost 2 months, but they did give me some steroids and some cough suppressants that are actually helping. I was happy to get some help there. Present, share screen. There we go. Look at that. There we go. News of the week. You've already seen the thumb, so let's get going. First thing we're going to talk about is that apparently manga sales are down a little bit. We've heard that, sales can be down a little bit for American comics here and there, although they tend to do pretty darn well. I don't need this anymore. They tend to do pretty well in trade paperbacks and collected editions. Accurate. Poor Dave. He has to come back here to America. His 3 weeks in Japan are over. Feel so pity. Yep. We're going to talk about One Piece. So let me give some specifics. Oricon, it's a Japanese company that tracks mostly like music sales, but it also does track manga sales in stunning levels of detail. Like, it took me a while to actually choose how high of a level I wanted to go to, because it drills way down if you want to look it up. I thought I'd just focus on overall individual tankobon volumes for the year. So for the 2024, One Piece was the top selling manga for a single issue. 14th time. I don't think consecutively, but still 14th time makes it the most times that it's had the #1 best-selling book of the year. And this time it was for volume 108, pictured here. That came out back in like March of this year, and it sold over 1.5 million copies. Certainly nothing to sneeze at, right? That's a huge, huge number for one volume. If we were talking about like all the volumes of a book for the whole year, I believe Blue Lock goes to #1, and then maybe Jujutsu Kaisen, then One Piece. But like, that's putting together a bunch of volumes, and it's sort of a weird way to track it. But yeah, Ichiro Oda, 14th time. Last year, One Piece was also #1. 105 was the top seller that year. It sold almost 2 million copies, as you can see here. They got down to like this level of number, like 08, like 1,912,008 copies sold. However, keep in mind, last year there was an animated movie that always boosts sales for like any manga, like having a popular anime out. So that probably did help. 2024's second best-selling volume, Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 25, also over 1.5 million units. In 2023, it was also in second place with Volume 21. That had 1,777,000 copies. Again, super popular anime series with a really popular arc last year set in Shibuya. So just keep that in mind. Other things that did well, Spy Family was represented both years. It's just that the trend is slightly lower all across the board. Slightly lower. Anyway, just something to keep our eyes on. It's not a massive dip, but a small one across the board. As long as I'm talking about manga, I'll pivot to how Marvel did a team up this past week with Shonen Jump. If you don't know, the final volume of My Hero Academia came out. That it was a very well-selling manga, and the anime is very popular. It wrapped up. I'm going to do an episode, I think, in 2025 of when it sort of lost me. I never hated My Hero Academia. I didn't, but it's just that when it started, I loved it, and by the end, I was like, it's okay. Anyway, it's still a very big deal. So there was this team up here that you see, Kohei Horikoshi, the artist and writer of My Hero Academia. He illustrated this Spider-Man with his characters, All Might and Deku. And he said, I've always wondered what it means to be a hero, especially when I was writing My Hero Academia. At some point, I finally came to the conclusion that what that means is being a strong part of a community, helping a friendly neighborhood, which is why I respect Spider-Man so much. He said before that big fan of superheroes. Superheroes aren't a big genre in manga, but My Hero Academia is definitely, superheroes. And on the other side, Humberto Ramos and colorist Edgar Delgado illustrated Black Cat with a bunch of the ladies that are in the manga My Hero Academia. So yeah. He does love Spider-Man, and I'll be honest, you'd think that Marvel could make him an offer that he would be very happy with. I think it would make a lot of sense. About a week ago, a little over a week ago, I changed it from, I love the name Pros and Cons, but branding-wise, didn't always make sense. So it's now Comic Tropes After Dark. Yeah, I would agree with that. There's a couple things that are superhero-esque, but they can also sometimes have supernatural feelings. So it's sort of would we call Hellboy an outright superhero? Not necessarily, even though he shares aspects with superheroes. So it's sort of a mix of genres. Yeah. I feel get Horikoshi on Ultimate Spider-Man after Jonathan Hickman and Marco Cicchetto wrap up their run, and people would probably be pretty excited. We'll see. As long as I'm talking about Marvel, I've got a few things for them. I have this in the thumbnail. Will Ryan Reynolds write Deadpool? Seems crazy, right? Well, maybe, but maybe not. Sorry. So first of all, just so you guys know, right now, Rob Liefeld has been promoting his next Deadpool comic, Deadpool Team Up, it's called. And he said it will definitely be his last Deadpool story, and he says it's going to be his last Marvel comic book. He might do covers. I wouldn't be surprised at that. But he says it's his last, and he's going just to do creator-owned stuff for the rest of his career. Yeah, maybe. So this is something Rob posted. He would know. He said, for years, I asked Ryan Reynolds to write a Deadpool story, but to no avail, sad face. Sounds like one is coming our way in 2025. Well, with how well Deadpool and Wolverine went, I would not be surprised at all if Marvel was like, you got any idea for something you'd want to do with Deadpool? Because we will definitely publish that. We'll see. But, my catchphrase, we'll see. I don't know about Ryan Reynolds as a writer. I mean, supposedly he co-wrote, a lot of the Deadpool movie stuff. I don't know. That doesn't necessarily mean you can write comics, but sometimes it does. Bruce Campbell wrote a great comic. Paul Dano wrote a great comic, so it's possible. Oh, look at this. Kevin, you're just stomping all over Canada? How horrible. How horrible. David Douse Malchin, I'll say, like, definitely loves comics, so I respect the heck out of that. Yeah, the Kamala Khan actress, what's her name? It's been a minute since I looked at her stuff, but she writes the Ms. Marvel comic, and it's gotten plenty of good reviews, done well. So yeah, apparently she does a good job on that. I've read some of it, actually, and yes, it is good. Thank you. Yes, Iman Vellani. And she was already a big comic book nerd, you know, before she ever got the role. So I feel like out of anyone that's worked in the MCU, she probably knows it the best overall and has the most respect for it. Oh yeah, what a great idea. Right, let's get Jared Leto on a Morbius book. It will all be about Morbius starting an indie rock band. Yeah, unfortunately, I read the first issue of that and like did a review on the show, and I was like, I'm sorry, it wasn't for me. I've heard great things about his book Count Crowley, so I'll have to check that out, or some of his other horror work. I respect the heck out of him as an actor, I really do. That one he did earlier this year, oh, that one was so creepy. What was it called? Like the one with like where he was a late night host. Oh, that was a good one, I thought. But anyway. Yeah. Yes, he should do the Blade Trinity novelization. That would be nice. He's definitely an entrepreneur. Yes, he owns Mint Mobile. He owns Aviator Gin. So he's diversified so that, like, you know, if the Deadpool stuff had collapsed, Ryan Reynolds is going to land on his feet. He's been a smart businessman. Late Night with the Devil. Thank you, everybody that said it. It's sincerely, it's pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good, I thought. All right, moving on though. Marvel has teased some new versions of characters for the Ultimate Universe. I'm only giving you a snippet of that because I don't want to spoil anything. All right, let me pause. Like, real quick, yes, it's stinky that they used AI, but it wasn't like they used it for anything that was necessarily substantive. They didn't use it for the script or for like special effects or something weird like that. They did a logo for the late night set that used AI supposedly, which is dumb and honestly like kind of pointless, but supposedly they did do that. All right, so what do we got? Look, it's just in 2 days, Wednesday. Marvel is going to release Ultimate Universe 1 year in. Writers Dennis Camp, he's been killing it on Ultimates. Chris Condon, he's about to write Ultimate Wolverine. Love his work on that. Texas Blood. 2 writers I respect. Artists Jonas Scharf and Alessandro Cappuccio. Bleeding Cool had early scans. I'm not showing all of them. They hint at a bunch of new versions of classic Marvel characters appearing in the Ultimate Universe for the first time. Story is going to focus on Nick Fury, who in this, he doesn't run S.H.I.E.L.D., he runs Hand. If you look at the logo, while at first it sort of looks like the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo, you can see it's a hand. And that's like a secret police force that works for the villain, the Maker, that set up the Ultimate Universe. And he's sort of appointed lieutenants throughout the world, supervillains that are controlling things. It's kind of cool. Oh, sorry, everybody. Forgot to pull that back up. Anyway, so yeah, two images there, not showing everything. But the characters that we'll see, we just know that we'll see Howard the Duck and Omega the Unknown. That's an obscure pull. Both Steve Gerber characters, by the way. Maybe just cameos. But also the Power Pack, 3D Man, the original 1940s version of the Vision, Devil Dinosaur, Lockjaw, Black Bolt, Mantis. So bunch of different superheroes just sort of being tossed into the background. Ultimate Pacepaw Pete is what I will be writing in March. Yes. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I hadn't even considered that. I don't think so, to be honest, but you never know. Well, Daredevil has been showing up in the background of the Ultimate Comics. In this universe, he is definitely not a lawyer or a boxer. He seems to just be a blind priest. I mean, maybe someday he still becomes Daredevil, but he's a priest. So he went a different path in this one. Ultimate Stiltman, I am all for. I am all for it. That's a good idea. Ultimate There's a lot you could do with Ultimates. We'll see. The Thing is getting a new comic, and I love The Thing. He's just such a great character. I'm a little surprised he doesn't have an ongoing book right now, just because like Spider-Man and Wolverine are usually on teams. They still can carry multiple solo books. The Thing has had an ongoing book. Not Marvel Team Up, Marvel 2-in-1. Was that the whole of the Thing book? And he's had a few like runs, maybe up to a year or so. He had a great limited series last year by Steve Scroce. That was fun, sort of a cosmic adventure. This is a very different one. So it's going to be a 5-issue limited series, and it's by writer Tony Fleeks. He's been doing some great stuff. Artist Leonard Kirk, who actually did draw Fantastic Four about like 10 years ago. This awesome cover by Nick Bradshaw, showing him fight all sorts of weird, like, come on. It's been a minute since we've seen Sidewinder on a cover. Jigsaw with his neck brace. It's been a little while. The Grizzly. What's this? Princess Python down here. Thunderball, Blob, Pyro, Juggernaut, Bullseye, Diamondback. But who's up here? I can barely make these out. I can't quite tell behind the logo. This might be Black Cat over here. I don't know. Anyway, what's it about? Ben Grimm is searching for a missing child, and he uncovers a criminal conspiracy with ties to his Yancey Street gang childhood. Promises villain fights from Juggernaut to Bullseye. They said they'd be having him go up against all sorts of villains, like all sorts of ones that he's never gone up against. And that begins March 5th. Could be a lot of fun. Yeah, I like the Scroce miniseries. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Wrecking Crew and Serpent Society are long overdue for new action figures. I've never really picked up any of those Marvel Legends figures, minus I got Death Dealer because I like the actor that played Death Dealer in the Shang-Chi movie. I like that YouTube channel, Marshall Club. Paste Pot Pete versus Ultimates. How could I solve this problem with glue? I love that idea. Yeah, totally agree. Tony Fleeks, super talented. So I'm into it. I usually get more excited these days by the creators that are working on something than the character. Or even the premise sometimes. Like the premise could sound cool, but if it doesn't have the right creators behind it, I don't tend to get as excited. That's just me. Spider-Gwen is teaming up with Loki. Just amused me. So Spider-Gwen, if you don't know, has actually crossed over and entered the mainstream Marvel Universe, 616. And she is now going to go on an intergalactic quest with Loki. I guess Loki wants some sort of object that she has, and so that's going to create some of the tension of them having to team up on a mission. So issue 11, same creative team, Stephanie Phillips, art by Paolo Villanelli, and a cover, of course, by Mark Brooks. That's going to start their adventure. Brooks also designed this new spacesuit version of the Spider-Gwen costume. And Gwen is being assisted these days in her multiversal adjustment by two characters that are based on characters from the Loki TV show. They've got Mobius and Ouroboros, OB, and she's also going to appear as one of the team members on the new TVA comic. So, yeah, I think that TVA looks like it could be a lot of fun. Loki was a good show, so I think it's smart to get some synergy when something really works in the MCU. It's like, it's annoying when they make changes to the character to match up with the movie in a meaningless way, but if they introduce a good version of a suit or an origin or something that's like an improvement, it makes sense to mirror that. comics have been doing that since the beginning. Superman flying in, the radio show and the animated cartoons. And they were like, oh, okay, you know what? In the comics, instead of jumping, yeah, he's going to fly too. That's like a similar idea. I think that like Miles Morales being more into street art instead of just another science nerd like Peter Parker kind of came from the first animated movie and really helped improve the comic book character. Whereas a bad version of that would be, so like, I love the original Spider-Man trilogy, right? But he didn't have organic webs in there. He just made them. Or sorry, flip that. I meant to say he did have organic webs. And so the comic felt the need to like all of a sudden give him these new powers. But we've been reading Spider-Man comics for over 50 years. It's very strange for him to get new powers. And then they went away really quick. Moving on. Did Ultimate Spider-Man outsell Absolute Batman? Well, here's why we're talking about it. Last week, DC had that press release that said Absolute Batman was the best-selling comic of 2024. And they claimed 400,000 units. Very impressive, no question. Very good. Absolute Batman started with an initial print run of 250,000, but quickly had second and third printings rushed out, and that's brought it up now to 400,000 copies. Very big, right? But Absolute Spider-Man's first issue initially sold less than things like Absolute Batman and TMNT #1. Those had, over 200,000 copies ordered. But Bleeding Cool, so that's who's claiming this, they said that they spoke with distributors and found that if you add up all 7 printings that Ultimate Spider-Man has now had, that actually reaches 450,000 copies, which would make that the best-selling periodical comic book of 2024. Just thought I'd put that out there. But, who knows what it'll be as they continue to do reprints into 2025. Todd McFarlane's returning to Spawn. Not that he's completely left, but he hasn't been completely hands-on. I'll explain. Rory McConville has been the main writer on Spawn since issue 324. Okay? 359 is the most recent issue that came out. So almost 3 years of being the main writer. Occasionally, Todd McFarlane is like credited with like script assistance or plot assistance, but Todd hasn't been the writer since 323. Well, Image announced that Todd is going to return as the solo writer of Spawn with issue 360, and that's set now for a January release. The artist is still Brett Booth. The synopsis for issue 360 says that the Vampire Nation, led by a guy named Blood, Bludd, like Major Blood from G.I. Joe? I guess so. Anyway, that the vampires have defeated Spawn. It's going to introduce a new chapter to the story. Always interesting to see Todd, return, considering how busy he is running a business. But yeah, he is going to go back to writing. Another Image thing I wanted to mention is that Saga announced that it had a bit of a delay. That's probably obvious by now if you read it monthly like I do. Issue 71 of Saga by Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan should have been out by now. Should have been out, I think, the end of last month or something. But it got delayed. Vaughan posted to his Substack explaining they finished the issue, but they were delayed, and their delay meant that then they got backed up in the schedule of getting scheduled to get it printed. Other books that are completed earlier, they're already in the queue. And with the holidays especially, printers are backed up. So it's likely that Saga 71 won't come out until January now. It might come out the end of this month, but it's probably January. They released 2 teaser pages just to show people that it's ready. And then he said, behind the scenes, didn't go into explicit detail, but he said, people's well-being will always take precedence over scheduling. So some member of the team just needed to deal with something. It backed them up. I think that that's understandable. Thank you, Calico. Wow. Support comic tropes and Chris. Well, thank you. You did. A true fan and lover of comics. I do. Thank you for these great videos and your support of indie comics. Here comes Calico on Kickstarter. Got it. Good luck. Yeah, as soon as I can carve out a little bit of time, I will do another indie showcase on this channel. I like to give people a platform. And yeah, now that it's called Comic Tropes After Dark, maybe that even helps people promote it a little more. Just like go like, it's on Comic Tropes, you know, that's fair. So I will do that. I'm just really busy with a lot of work on the channel. So I don't know when I'll schedule that yet, but soon. Thank you for watching that. That means a lot to me. I read it monthly, and it I don't know. It's one of my favorites, so I always have it fairly fresh in my mind of what's going on. All right, back to the news. Jeff Lemire is making a memoir comic book. I'm impressed because it looks ambitious. Dark Horse announced that he will release a memoir in July. It's going to be $49.95. I couldn't find the exact page count, but all the things that they said it would cover lead me to think it'll be pretty hefty. Here's a quote. Jeff Lemire is sharing his winding path to success via a book-by-book and step-by-step journey of sketches, previously unpublished materials, essays, archives, and more. It promises to discuss how he broke into comics, what it's like to actually write for Marvel and DC, giving us behind-the-scenes looks at how he worked on adapting Sweet Tooth from comics to Netflix, what went on there. It'll have archival reproductions of some of his initial mini comics before he became a big deal. It's got a lot. So if you like Jeff Lemire, this promises to be pretty open and you know, really talk about his journey. But I think that this is the kind of book that also sort of helps you understand a little better what the actual work part of making comics could be. I'm looking forward to it. Already have this on my list. Very cool. Minor Arcana is great. Not surprised. Where is the googly eye skeleton vinyl cover that should be hanging in your background? Well, that would be still at Jim Mafoot's house. He drew that. Yeah, in July. Should be interesting. I need it. Lemire has been killing it lately and quickly became one of my favorite creators. He's prolific. He's worked in a lot of different areas, a lot of different genres, a lot of different publishers, you know, writer, artist. So he's got a lot of perspective on the industry. I know. Life is tough. I'll get it back someday. New Asterix omnibus coming out. Mention that because guess what? Asterix is still the best-selling comic worldwide. One Piece might overtake it in the next couple of years, but for now, Asterix is still #1 worldwide for sales. Did you send it to the P.O. box, Wayne? If so, I just haven't been to the P.O. box lately is all. So, Mad Cave and their imprint, specifically Paper Cuts, have the rights now to print Asterix in America. Well, in the North America, I believe. And so they're going to do a first-time English release of volume 16 of an omnibus set. That will include 3 graphic novels, and those are by Jean-Yves Ferry and Didier Conrad. We've got Asterix and the Chariot Race, Asterix and the Chieftain's Daughter, and Asterix and the Griffin. But also, what about the original creators? Well, in March, Mad Cave and Paper Cuts is releasing volume 2 of a big omnibus printing the stories from the beginning, and that will be stories by the original creators, Goscinny and Uderzo. I have never seen the cartoons, no. Asterix is great. Asterix is really, really cool. Yeah, still is Outsell Dogman, but your One Piece and Dogman are definitely like right underneath it and are also a lot newer. It's that, Asterix has been going for a long time and is still going. But the Dogman and One Piece probably will overtake it, maybe as soon as next year, maybe 2026. But both of those are likely to pass it at a certain point. At the same time, Asterix will always be super high up there. I haven't read the new Asterix stuff. I've only read some of the original stuff by the original creators. So hopefully I'll get it there. Yeah, I want to do an episode about Asterix and his history. I really do. But there's so much to cover. So many images to gather. That's what takes time. Hey, thank you, Steve. Always appreciate the support. Always wanted to read Asterix. Well, then this will be an easy way. Like by this spring, there'll be new English volumes going from the beginning as well as some of the new stuff. What's it about? It's about a Gaul, basically a Frenchman warrior back in the days of he mostly battles ancient Romans. Yeah, but goes all over Europe, getting into adventures. Actually really travels the world. He's got a potion that he can drink and he becomes super strong, even though he's kind of petite. I think I did read Asterix and Cleopatra when I was in something like 6th grade, but it's a long time ago. I've only seen pages of Lucky Luke. I've never read a full volume. Yeah, a lot of people obviously have read Asterix at some point, at least some of it. Here's some money to support you and new episodes. Boy, do I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Best of luck. Best of luck. Solstice Art is Kevin Delgado. He's sent in books like Tough Stuff. He's got some other cool indie books. So, yeah. I was always a little more into Tintin as well, if we're talking about just bande dessinée. But, yeah, Asterix is important. Moving on. Now we get into some of the weird news, folks. Singapore Comic-Con lets you look at cosplayers' feet. Oh, did anyone ask for that? I don't think so. Thank you for the support, Renegade Rants Comics. Thank you so much. I love the branding. Look at you, all the QR code and all this stuff. That's great. All right. So here's what is going on there. Ruru-sama is a cosplayer, apparently, in Singapore, and she was a guest at this past weekend's Singapore Comic-Con. She posted to Instagram that she spent over $26,000 US on her convention display. I'm giving you US dollar amounts. She, of course, posted in Singapore amounts, so that would have been more like $35,000 Singapore dollars. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so here's what she offered. For $15, you get to interact with Ruru for 10 seconds. You can either get a pat on your head, hold hands, you could get used as a footstool, or have your face slapped, or she could whisper a compliment to you for $15 US. For $37, I think that was like 50 Singapore. I can't remember all the conversions. You get a 1-minute interaction. For that, you could either get something called a cabedon, which is the act of cornering someone against a wall and slapping your hand on it, or the chance to share a stick of Pocky with her, or uninterrupted eye contact for a whole minute. Play some Marvel Rivals and or Fortnite. I will talk about that in a minute then, Steve. Thank you for that. Thank you. I will, yeah. I sort of respect the hustle. It's a little weird, but it is. I respect the hustle. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Asterisk and Tintin are genius. They have always been available, even today in our British library system. Long may it continue. They're both super important. Yeah, and I'm glad. Guess I'm going to Singapore next year with $370 and a box of Pocky. 370? Oh, so you want 10 minutes? I'd be interested in seeing how much she makes. I assume a lot. Because here's the big one, all right? $746 or $1,000 Singapore, but $746 US. One fan could have the option to do one of two things. Have an exclusive peek at Ruru's feet under the table, or get a strand of her hair. Okay. I feel like, I don't know. I wonder if like US conventions would allow that. I feel like they probably would, but it's not common. Whatever, you know. Hey, if she can make $1,000 and if that makes somebody happy getting to see her feet up close, I guess nobody's getting hurt. It seems different, but whatever. I just had to mention it because I have to admit, I've never seen somebody offer any of these things at a Comic-Con. So. She's kind of a big deal. So, and you know what? Like, while I respect the hustle, I also kind of respect that she didn't try to sell like 100 of these experiences to have a strand of her hair or peek at her feet. She sold it once. I was like, all right, you know what? She's not like completely fleecing like a million people. Like if it's in that much demand, I don't know. It's different. That's all. Tarantino is on the flight to Singapore right now. Possibly. Oh my God. Do you think Jim Lee could, you know, I bet that he could. He could do that. He could sell $1,000 and you could get a peek at Jim Lee's feet. And there's got to be people out there that would want to do that. There's got to be. Assault me for $15. The slap. Yeah. Hey, it's Comic Tropes After Dark. I'm just branding properly. I just thought people would be amused at such a different convention experience is all. Talking is irritating the throat a little. I wouldn't pay that. I wouldn't pay anything because it's not my thing. But if he wanted to do it and somebody wanted to pay it, I'm like, all right, who's getting hurt, I guess, right? One night in Bangkok and the world's your oyster. Who was that? Oh, some British white guy rapping about chess in Bangkok. Murray something. Murray Head? How much for her bathwater? She wasn't selling that, but maybe she should. Who was that? Something Delphine, right? Oh, I can't remember her. Belle Delphine? Something like that. Let's get Chris $1,000 for this stream. You're welcome to. I'll just put it out there. I ain't going to show you my feet. I'm not comfortable with that. If Murray Head. Okay, I had it right. One night in Bangkok. Your oyster. That is a funny song that I legit find catchy. Rapping about chess. That's so cool. All right, moving on. You could do it if you have the money to do it. Thank you for the $6.66, Dave. Continuing with the Comic Tropes After Dark theme. I'm not going to get into the details of this guy's crime because it's bad, okay? It's bad. You can look it up if you're curious, I figured. But it does relate to comics a little. There was a guy known as the comic book killer in Australia. Leonard Lawson, notorious criminal in Australia. Before he spent nearly 50 years, his last 50 years of life in jail, he was an artist for comics, Lone Avenger, and the Hooded Rider. Bottom is one of his comic book pages, again, Australia. And at the top, a mural that he painted in prison. He was commissioned to paint it. Pretty beautiful, I would say. Super talented, right? Bad guy, just to be clear. Bad guy. Real bad. Like, went to jail, got released for good behavior, committed a worse series of crimes, went back to jail for a much longer time. Bad guy. Horrible things. He was imprisoned in Grafton jail, and while there, he painted these nature murals. Well, Grafton closed back in 2020, and the New South Wales Health repurposed the buildings. They're turning these former prison buildings into, I don't think hospitals, but, stuff to do with like maybe more like mental health care and stuff like that. So, the work of his is on a wall that can't just be taken down. It's like a load-bearing wall that they can't like just remove the art to preserve. It's on like, brick. So the intent right now is to cover the art up with like, new plaster and cover it up for as these buildings get repurposed. It hasn't been 100% determined yet because, just to be clear, locally, the Clarence River Historical Society is contesting this, saying that it is an important part of local history. He was a famous artist. He painted something nice that he was commissioned to do. It was there for a long time. I don't know. Literally killer art. It might be forced perspective, Dave. I thought you'd know a little more about that, but that's okay. Well, again, if you look it up, bad guy, okay? Bad guy. Apparently, it's just that while he was in jail, he was always a model prisoner. That's how he got released early the first time. But then he commit like just as bad crime on a bigger level. I like that hit, mate. Yes, everything is more dangerous in Australia. Everything alive wants to kill you, including the comic book artists. Knock your shoes upside down before you put them on, because there could be a scorpion or a snake or something like that. Okay, 40-foot marlin. Sure. Who needs Jaws 5? We're going to get Marlin 1, the first Marlin movie. Probably not. I don't know. I can understand that it could be considered part of a town's history. I used to live in DC, and I hope it's still there, but I used to go up to this one place in Baltimore. It was called the Visionary Art Museum. It was amazing, folks. It was a museum full of artwork by people that had mental issues. Could be just like that they were like, just mentally challenged, slow. It could be that they were like injured in some very particular way and had severe brain damage, but still made types of art. And sometimes they were like criminals with diagnosed conditions, but they made art. And this Visionary Art Museum had all types of arts, tapestries, paintings, models, massive models made out of like toothpicks, things like that. It was really interesting because you go, wow, like people can still express themselves in really fascinating, unique, and beautiful ways in a wide variety of conditions. And it just sort of speaks to how, somebody that could be, we'll say damaged if in the event of like, like a traumatic brain injury, still had the ability to communicate some really beautiful art. I really recommend it if it's still there. And yeah. I don't think so. This was a long time ago. Like his comics were, I think, from like the late 40s or early 50s. So, because this was a long time ago, just to be clear. Unique story. And I hate talking about this, but maybe local people can keep up to date and see if like there's a turn of events for the better. There was a fire last night that destroyed a comic book store. Let's see. So last night there was a strip mall in Toledo, Ohio that caught on fire. Monarch Comics in Toledo was sadly completely destroyed. No injuries, and the initial cause has yet to be determined. There's a couple restaurants there, but it doesn't, at the initial reporting, didn't look like it necessarily originated from one of them. So we're not sure yet. Monarch Comics posted this morning to their social media. I saw this on Facebook. This is just part of their post. We lost everything. All books, both new and old, are destroyed. They also said, I have no idea what the future holds for us at this point. Who would know this soon? I can definitely say that we are going to be closed for the time being. So I'm sorry to both the owners and the readers at Monarch Comics in Toledo. I'll hope that insurance comes through and that there's an opportunity to rebuild somewhere else. But when you lose all your inventory like that, you really might be starting from scratch. I don't know if they're the kind of store that keeps stuff in storage off-site or not. I didn't see anything. So yeah, of course. Yeah. It's none of us want to carry insurance because every type of insurance makes it so difficult to keep your coverage active and be compensated. But if you don't have it, this is where you can really just completely lose out. And I've had some good experiences and some bad experiences with insurance. I've had good experiences with car insurance. I've had bad experiences with health insurance. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the news right now. It has nothing to do with comics, so I'm going to just move forward because I would still like to draw tonight. I would still like to draw. Absolutely. You guys are always so sympathetic and kind, and I figured, hey, maybe somebody watching this is local and they'll be able to keep up to date with the situation, see if there's a way to help the community. I didn't use much of my Japanese because Yo volunteered from the beginning to be the translator, and I know his skills are way better than mine. The most I could have done would be I could have thought out the questions I was going to ask, and I maybe with a little help, but I probably could have converted my questions into Japanese and said them. And then I could have listened to Peach, but I wouldn't have been able to, on the fly, understand everything she was telling me to properly ask a follow-up question or know that she was definitely done. I would have been understanding the gist. So it was best that Yo translated. It was very kind. Watched my local shop die due to the pandemic. I'm sorry to hear that, John. It's a tough business. The margins are small in comics. The margins are small. I'm not sure. I suspect Peach knows better English than she may let on, because when I'm watching the video, sometimes I saw her respond while Yo and I were speaking in English. If you watch, you can catch that. She just once or twice adds something. So, and she lived here for a while. So I think she does, but clearly Yo is the more fluent one. And that's just part of what he's happy to help do to help her in her job. I started sketching Roadblock from G.I. Joe last week on Ink Pulp Live and didn't have time to finish it. I didn't get very far in it, actually. It's a second drawing that I started on their show. I thought I'd draw some of that tonight. What I love about that interview, though, is how she just was working the whole time. All right, a little bit more news. WEBTOON is partnering with Discord. For anybody that reads their comics on WEBTOON, eligible fans who explore the first 10 episodes of one of their biggest originals, School Bus Graveyard, again, the first 10 episodes, and find the character Wumpus twice, will receive a 1-month trial of Discord Nitro. That's their sort of premium version of Discord for chat, voice, text, etc. See Wumpus in an episode panel? Click on them to report Wumpus's whereabouts to us. Find Wumpus twice and receive a 1-month trial of Discord Nitro for you or an eligible friend to use. So there you go. I'm sure he could. I'm sure he could. We did talk about that before, yeah. We did talk about that in a previous episode. This promotion started about 5 days ago, runs through the 25th. So if you want Discord Nitro, something you could do, you could check out a new comic, click on the character Wampus twice, boom, you might get Discord Nitro. Is there going to be a new Secret Six at DC? It sure as hell seems like it to me, based on what I'm about to share with you. Clearly, there are 6 images here. So, actress and writer Nicole Maines, right? She played Dreamer on CW's Supergirl. After that, she followed that up with getting actual writing work on comics. She wrote Suicide Squad Dream Team and Absolute Power Super Son, both pretty well received. Over on Blue Sky, she has been posting new character designs for 6 characters. We've got Dreamer, we've got Jay Nakamura, Superman's boyfriend, John Kent, new outfit, Black Alice, magic user. And then surprisingly, and we didn't know how many pictures there would be, but we got 5 and 6. We got Deadshot and Catman. Well, 6 characters, and 2 of them pretty famous for being on the team Secret Six. We haven't seen Secret Six since the beginning of the New 52. It just seems like this is a tease that Nicole will be writing a new Secret Six comic. They can make money with ads, with subscriptions. There's a couple different ways they can make money there. And then, of course, they can sometimes, license these things into print editions, anime, merchandise. Yeah. Wonder if she's solo writing, or if she's co-writing, like with her and Cena Grace. Yeah, could be either one. I wouldn't know. I don't think that's Deadshot. I think that's a redesign of Deadeye, who's Waller's nephew. Really? Even with this symbol down here that Deadshot usually has, and the cybernetic eye? You could be right. Yeah. Yes. I believe they met at Rose City Comic-Con around maybe 2015, 2017, somewhere in that range. Yeah. I don't know about Waller's nephew, to be honest. So, but Owen's Reviews is very plugged into comics. So guess is as good as mine. I just think, if they're going to post 6 characters and 2 of them have famously been on Secret Six, one of them is the character that she has played and written, feels likely. Another piece of DC news to wrap it up. They're selling their books at Dollar Tree. I feel like everybody in America has a Dollar Tree near them. Look, let's just get this out of the way. The stuff at Dollar Tree is now often $1.25. What can you do? There's inflation. They can't change their name in a very charismatic way to $1.25 Tree. I need to find a Japanese cosplayer who will whisper "sumimasen" into my ear for $10. Hey, guess what? I'm happy to do that, Dave. I'm going to dress up as, we'll say, Anya from Spy Family, and I'll whisper "sumimasen" in your ear for $10. But you have to buy the costume too, so that I don't lose out. Anyway, Dollar Tree. This is a photo. Twitter user Deck of Spades posted this image, and yeah, you can now buy DC Comics at Dollar Tree for $1.25. Since they usually are $3.99, that's a pretty good price. If you haven't tried any of these, it's a good price. 38 different DC Comics, all issues number 1. All of them an entry-level type thing. Wide variety of their books from a lot of the past years, okay? But you might find an artist or a writer that you like. $1.25 just is a really competitive price for trying out a comic these days. That's all. And they are polybagged to help prevent damage, people flipping through them or something. They're not going to be able to do that. Thank you, Michael. Do you have an active merch store online? Only sort of. On YouTube, underneath the video, there is a link where you can get like t-shirts and things like that with some of my designs, but I haven't updated it in a long time. I do have a bunch of ideas. I just haven't had any time to create some of those partnerships. At some point I will. I hope that that's sometime soon. Yeah. I'll let you guys know. Wait until it hits Ollie's. It might. They said, though, Dollar Tree said that they plan to release even more DC comics beyond these 38 issues next year. So, wow. I miss Spinnerax. That's why I call this show the Weekly Spinnerax. Loved that. Oh, sumimasen just means excuse me, basically, or I'm sorry. Something close to that. You could use it in either way. If you were really apologizing, you might say more like gomenasai. But if it's just like bumping into someone, sumimasen. If you're just trying to get somebody's attention at a restaurant, though, you could use it that way too. Sumimasen. It's like excuse me. But that's it. That's it. That's all you get. All right. So I was pretty sick this week, right? Pretty sick, like coughing. Saw a doctor, got some meds. That's good. What does that mean? It means I didn't go to the comic book store yet. But I also sort of like balanced that with a couple things. I didn't want to get anybody else sick. And also there were only about 2 comics that I was planning on picking up. So what I did, I'll still buy the physical copies that I have reserved at the comic shop, but I bought the digital versions of 2 books. It means that I don't have anything to show you, but I'm going to do kind of quick reviews of 2 books that I read. I read Absolute Superman issue 2 by Jason Aaron and Rafa Sandoval, and I read Ultimates number 7 by Dennis Camp and Juan Frigeri, if I'm getting that right. Between the 2, I liked Ultimates more. It's I do recommend Ultimates a lot. It gave us a lot. It's a breathing episode, like sort of between two big events. Last issue killed off a team member. I won't spoil it, okay? It killed off a team member. Obviously it's comics. Maybe they could somehow revive or recover. That is potentially a possibility. But right now, the team is actually dealing with those ramifications, and in a lot of different ways. You know, some characters have dealt with death before and talk about, you know, how they're going to need to find a way to bring the other team up to speed, that this is something that can happen. Some team members are just having a lot of trouble with the grief and, you know, going to, like, you know, memorials or trying to get home. And it was really cool. A meditation on grief. And it made this character death feel like it meant something, which it will be very tricky if they bring a character back. It's comics, so you can sometimes do that. It would almost, right now, this is carrying a lot of weight. I was surprised. I think that they will bring the character back. I don't know. That might sort of ruin things a little for me. But for now, I like this issue. Great art, good dialogue. A lot of different personalities for the characters. I love the characters in this. I really like the Ultimates. I'll also talk real quickly about Absolute Superman number 2. I've got stuff in it that I like. I've got stuff in it that isn't working for me perfectly. Which can sometimes, you know, I guess that's kind of my take on Jason Aaron in a nutshell. Sometimes I love what he does, and other times I'm like, I'm a little indifferent to that. Sorry, I'm setting up my camera so that I can draw for you all in a minute. Just having a little trouble focusing. So Absolute Superman number 2. it gives us like some different stuff about Superman in that he has a sentient suit. It's almost like it's nanotech, can kind of like talk to him as like an AI robot voice in his head, and it can like sort of morph in, like his cape can morph into like, you know, carrying people or protecting people like a shield. It's all right, fine, whatever. He's got a different thing. And they've got a lot about, you know, a flashback of him growing up on Krypton. And the Krypton stuff is good, but it isn't all great. But there were two things I liked about this. There were two instances of people feeling the need to write and to create, and how that made them feel good. And that felt very honest and very earned. One was Clark himself, well, Kal-El, back on Krypton, and he had a school class, and he wrote a story, and the teacher's like, this is a great story, Clark, like really, really great emotions and stuff. However, you know, the assignment required you to pull information from the Krypton servers that have all of our knowledge and tell the AI what to like write for you, like all your classmates did. But this seems to be original. And he's like, yeah, I wrote it. And they're like, but why? And he's like, because I wanted to. And they're like, well, that's not really what the assignment was. You know, the assignment was to learn how to properly research material and compile it into a new essay. Kind of relevant to today. And I can understand like that there is pleasure to be found in taking the time to do the work yourself and to create something. A little interesting. And at the very end, there's a scene where Lois Lane in this version, to folks, she's not a reporter, at least not yet. She's she works for something called Lazarus, which is like a security department or something. And she's an agent, okay? And she decides at the end that she wants to write a field report. And her boss is like, whoa, like, aren't you the same person that once like yelled at me for 30 minutes that you did not want to write your field report? And she's like, yeah, but this time I feel like I want to get my thoughts out in an organized method. I've got something to say. And, you know, it's about her encounter with Superman. And she writes a report and she's like, I've never felt like I wanted to write before, but I felt good about it. I go, okay. Both of those I can believe in. Just because you're told to write, sometimes you don't want to write, you know? In school, it's not always fun to write essays or reports. It's not. And then you get out of it and you could either do creative writing or research a piece of history like comics history, and it becomes really, really fun. And I like both of those pieces quite a bit. I go, that's interesting that he could insert something kind of real. I wouldn't say his cape is AI. I was just saying like that it's sentient. And you could argue that that's like a type of AI, as much as something like Brainiac is, if you've ever considered him AI. It's a more advanced AI than like the stuff we deal with for like prompts. So the art, by the way, is great though. Rafa Sandoval is crushing it. Really cool to discover his art. I wasn't familiar before. Yeah, to be clear, I called it nanotech for simplicity's sake. They say that it's a dust that you can mine on Krypton, but clearly you can program it. So, you know, who knows what that means? Who knows? That part I liked. But that was really all I read this week. So if I missed out on something, I don't know what to say. That was all I read. What do you think of my Christmas shirt? Is that good? Right now, it looks like probably going to take the trip to Japan after all. We were planning on canceling it because my wife is sick. She's got something that makes her feel very tired. I won't get into it. That's her story to tell. But then we found out that like we had booked really good rates for like the plane flight, and we'd forgotten that we got those rates with non-refundable tickets. So now with the logic that like we've got them non-refundable, we're leaning towards, as long as Chrissy feels like she could do the plane flight, we'll do it. And she might just take it easier in Japan and treat it like a vacation to at least relax, go out when she feels like it, but might not go out all the time. I hope that that's what happens. I think that makes sense, that both of us treat it like a relaxing one instead of like a trip. We've been there a bunch of times before. So I don't feel like we got to hit this site, like this, building, this shrine, this, amusement park. We don't have to do that. We don't have to. We could still have like a relaxing vacation, just getting some of our favorite food, visiting just local shops that aren't far. So we'll lean towards that. Well, I hope we can do that. I hope we can do that. We'll sort of decide last minute, but we have booked a hotel, so we booked we'll see. So it might be more of an actual vacation. Tell you what, I'm going to bring up an extra camera here. And hold on, there was a different view that I could do, wasn't there? There it is. And I'll turn on this light. Boom, so that you can see it a little better. Yeah. So I'm going to ink a little bit. I had appeared, I'll plug it in, on Ink Pulp with Sean Crystal and Jim Mafood last Wednesday. So if you're curious, feel free to check that out. I had a fantastic time talking to both those guys. Really, really a great privilege to be able to try to hang and draw with two guys that I respect that much as artists. And I drew Roadblock. I actually drew this Roadblock during the show. And I'd done 2 sketches just in case. And this was a second sketch that I did. And I just sort of felt like I did everything I was going to be able to do on the show with this. It came out close to what I liked. A few places where I'd love to have gotten it like a little more refined on like the hands and these shoulder pads, but it came out okay. But whatever. I started a little bit of this, didn't do a lot, and I felt like I wanted to see where I could go. So I'm going to do that right now. And what I can do is take questions. And we'll say end of the year questions or something. If you've got anything that you're curious about with either this channel or comic tropes, things like that, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer in a thoughtful manner. And we'll just talk comics and stuff like that. If you don't have anything you can think of, I do have one other short story I can talk about. Tell you what, I'll do this. I'll tell a quick story. So, I saw an early release of a horror movie on, I think it was Wednesday. If it was it late Tuesday or was it Wednesday? I don't remember. But anyway, my buddy and I just hadn't seen each other in a while, and we both like movies. We'll see anything. We decided to see Werewolves. Have you even heard of that? It's a theatrically released movie. We had no expectations for it to be good, but it's horror, it's rated R, whatever. We're just like, yeah, we'll give this a shot. Hilarious. Kind of bad, but hilarious. Folks, I'm just going to say this. First thing you get with the movie Werewolves is a title card telling you like what to expect. It says, last year, the supermoon turned 1 billion people into werewolves. Now, it's been a year. There's going to be another supermoon, and scientists have been hard at work trying to figure out a way to stop it. 1 billion werewolves. I laughed out loud. I was not expecting that. Does it live up to that premise? Oh, hell no. That sounded so beyond epic to me. I cracked up. 1 billion werewolves. It does not execute that premise well at all. It's kind of like treated like The Purge. They're like, we are, halting all emergency services and, recommend you stay indoors because if you are exposed to moonlight, you get turned into a werewolf. Apparently, the supermoon is closer than it's been in the past. And so exposure to the moonlight just turns you into a werewolf. That's a new idea. It instantly made me, I lean over to my friend and I go, so what happened with like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin? How were they able to get so close to the moon? Not addressed, I'm afraid. Not addressed. Oh, it knew it was dumb. Juror number 2 is good. I hadn't heard about that one. It should have been called 1 Billion Werewolves. He's not leaning. He's just sort of like doing like an action pose, sort of jumping back and like dealing with a bunch of recoil on a massive, massive machine gun. So anyway, kind of fun, kind of bad. I can't really recommend it very strongly to anybody, because it doesn't quite live up to its full potential with that premise. It has some weird editing. Lots of little things with like, people, in a room and then all of a sudden out of the room, or like, but with no transition thing, like looking at a door or making a move towards it, like kind of confusing. It's a Clint Eastwood movie. Oh, okay. Huh. A lot of people saying that they like that movie. Oops, it was fake. Was that what they were trying to teach me? That was the whole point of the movie. Yeah, like, and like little things get sort of like dropped here and there. Like the main scientist is played by Lou Diamond Phillips, and he does like a press conference, and then he seems to like get bit towards the beginning, but he just sort of like disappears from the movie. I don't know. Thank you, Larry. Speaking of horror, I'm curious if you've read the comic adaptation of The Keep. No, I'm aware that there was one, but I've never read the comic adaptation. I've heard that there is going to be a re-release of that movie. But yeah, the author of the novel that the film was based on made it after he was unhappy with the Michael Mann adaptation. I've always heard that there was a director's cut of that movie that was an improvement, but I don't think that it will ever get released. Yeah, a flawed movie, but that's okay. It's been a long time since I've seen The Keep. It's been a long time. Maybe that's something we should cover on Trash Movie Bonanza at some point. Starred Scott Glenn, and in the world of comics, he played Stick on the Daredevil show. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that there's a really long version that makes it make more sense. I should move my camera to the upper left. I don't know if I can. Let me see. Did I do it? Did I get it? I think it's about to come out. I think. Flawed, but great. It's interesting. It's interesting. The premise is good. I've never read the novel. I should read the novel. I don't know why I haven't. I just never did. Hey, what's everybody doing for the holidays? Anybody hosting? Anybody going anywhere? Anybody just skipping them completely because it's too much stress? But thanks for watching, and thank you again to Dynamite for sponsoring this video. Again, Herculoids. When I finish, I'll put in the description a link to where you can get this book either on Dynamite's site or the order code that you could give your comic book store to get it from your local comic shop. So, yeah. Oh, cool. I'll take that. Bah humbug, fair. Still scheduling, but I did just paint my nails Christmas colors. Sweet Christmas. I'll probably cook a turkey if I can find one. We might do prime rib this year. We might do prime rib with the fam. Honestly, I told Chrissy, look, what do you want this year? You're the one that's not feeling perfect. You tell me what you want. We'll just find a way to make that happen. I'm going to try to draw all the black parts with just sort of parallel motion lines and see if that represents jitter. I don't know if that's overdoing it or if it will look confusing. I haven't really fully tried to represent something like this right now, but I feel like if you're shooting a big gun like this, it should have jitter. It should I can't think of a better word to represent what I'm trying to show visually. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to represent here, is the fact that it's in motion. It's going back and forth, essentially, like in a super fast, like barely perceivable way. Does that make sense? I hope so. Bounce, recoils up and back, but I can't sort of I can't think of a good way to show it in a circular method. So I'm just going to sort of represent at least back and forth, and you know, it's all representational as compared to realistic. It's representational. That's what I'm trying to tell myself. I don't know. It's just a fun challenge to see what it will look like when I'm done. That's kind of you. Well, I'm representing recoil, but I was trying to be more specific about like what I'm showing with the motion. I don't have Copic fine liners. That would be, you know what? Like, that's something I should probably put on like my Christmas wish list, because it's something I feel like I can't really justify buying for myself. But yeah, I'm gonna switch it up here and there to like this Tombow brush pen, Fudenosuke, here and there for like sort of the outside lines. Make sure that those are nice and big and bold. If that makes sense. I really admired when I did the Ink Pulp show last week, watching Sean draw, Sean Crystal. Hadn't really been able to have that opportunity before, and he was using the same thing, just a brush pen. And boy, the feathering that he was getting really looked appealing to me. I really enjoyed it. So that was part of what made me want to continue doing this drawing, just see if I can make some improvements and learn a little bit about how he was doing it. Not trying to copy, but trying to learn, because I really liked the results that he was getting. All right, so let's see. Well, actually, I will sometimes use dip pens and brushes, but I'll say this. I've found that quills and dips on live streams are much trickier for me to focus on using while still being able to talk. This is a tool that I found I can more or less use pretty easily while still talking. So it's sort of it's a balance of like the results that I'm getting, but also being able to sort of zone out and focus on more than one thing at a time. Anybody planning to watch the Craven movie? I'll almost definitely see it just to keep up. I don't know what to expect out of that one. I really don't. It might have more potential for a main character than Madam Web. Or it might just be another Venom 3 Morbius type thing from Sony. Yeah. I don't want to say everything that I'll say in tomorrow's Madam Web deep dive, but I will say that Jim and I were like, clearly Sony can crush it with some of their projects because the Spider-Verse movies are pretty fantastic. They're pretty great. So why can't they just do that? I don't know. Yeah, how many films have Calypso as a character? I'm going to put that at a 0. And after this, it will probably stay as 1 for a long time. Oh, yeah. Craven they use all the time. They use Craven a lot. Craven got brought back from the dead, folks. In fact, I talk about that quite a bit in the Madam Web review. I'll just leave that there. But there's a reason. I agree, but it shows that they can be creative and use the characters and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, so, why not do Craven as an animated movie? Or why not do at least the character that has way more agency? And the examples I lean towards out of the characters that they have, Black Cat, Silver Sable, both of those you could easily do without Spider-Man, and you could tell a compelling story. These ideas of just using the villains confuses me. I'm like, what? Do any of us want to root for villains? I mean, I guess in rare cases, yes. But it has to tell us something important at that point. Are there any other? What's the next comic book movie after that? Probably not until the spring, right? With Captain America and then Thunderbolts. We get Superman. Oh, Creature Commandos came out this past week. I liked it. I thought that the characters they chose were good. I was surprised with one thing. It seems to assume that James Gunn's Suicide Squad and Peacemaker are more or less canon in this new version of the DCU. Doesn't really get into deep detail on that, but definitely implies that those events still happened. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know why, but I wasn't. Yeah, so James Gunn keeping the stuff that he made canon. More or less, anyway. But I like what they do with the character Rick Flag and with the Bride. Those are both really good takes on some important DC characters. So, not important, but like notable. Important would be Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern. Important is maybe overstaying, but notable. Stumble out of bed and I stumble in the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition. Right? Oh man. Dolly Parton's awesome. I know that's random. All right. The only villain who should get a movie is Doctor Doom. Maybe Magneto. Don't forget, Authority Engineer is in Superman. Neato. All of Peacemaker's canon except the Justice League cameo at the end. Yeah, but so like he'd said that before, but I didn't necessarily know where Suicide Squad stood, and they don't like get into anything too specific like Harley Quinn or Polka Dot Man or anything like that, but some of the characters definitely are sort of crossing over and are in both worlds. Yeah. Madam Web, played by Dolly Parton, but Dolly doesn't change anything about her presentation. I'm in. Maybe. The last few Doctor Who Christmas specials have kind of let me down. It's been a while since they've had a good one. There have been some excellent ones. So maybe. The answer is maybe. David Dastmalchian is in every comic book show or movie now. Yeah, and I think that they definitely used a bunch of those ideas in X-Men First Class and that they worked pretty well. Dude, talking about old things that I never expected to see become canon, not that it's exactly canon, but the new Star Wars show, Skeleton Crew, has somebody watch one of those virtual holographic presentations like Chewbacca's father watches in the Christmas special. I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. Yeah, Life Day. I like Skeleton Crew. There's a little like it's sort of designed for kids, but you know what? Star Wars kind of has always been pretty family friendly overall, with a few exceptions. And I thought Skeleton Crew worked pretty darn well. There is an elephant boy called something like Neil, and he is just so charming and cute and awkward. I love Neil. Neil just like has hugely won me over. Yeah. The Ewok Battle for Endor, if you say so. I remember being pretty disappointed by those as kids. You'd be like, oh, this isn't as big as the movies that I see in the theater. I was a kid. I didn't know that it was going to be different like that. Yeah, it's kind of Goonies. It's the thing I get from it, like big vibes, is Treasure Island. Long John Silver and Treasure Island. That's what I get out of it. Anyway, I enjoyed that. Was there anything else? I'm still enjoying personally Dandadan. It's probably not for everybody, but I think that show is so well animated and really funny and charming, and I like it as well. That's all. Yeah, I like it. You love Dandadan? I really enjoy it. I've enjoyed the manga, and this might be a rare case where I'm sort of enjoying the anime even a little more. I don't love every voice in it. It's not the voice I'd heard in my head, but the animation is great. I think they've made some good choices to soften some of the stuff. It's so weird, and that's what I like about it. It's not realistic. None of it's real. And if it was realistic, it would be awful. It's good that it's weird. Cool. Oh yeah, I have seen Invincible Fight Girl. I saw it on like some social media channel, maybe more than one. The animation was great. I'll tell you what. I've watched the opening song and opening animation to Don Da Don on YouTube several times because I'm like, that is a catchy song. And I love how experimental the animation is and all the references that they have to other, pop culture. Oh, really? I've talked about it on this show before. Do I have any of the issues handy? I guess I don't have one of the mangas handy beside me, but that was one that my wife actually picked me up the first volume. She was like, it had come out fairly recently, and she was like, I got you something new. I think you'll like it. Excuse me, I do have it here. Yeah. So Yokinubu Tatsu. Here, I'll put it here. It's easier. I believe this artist was an assistant with Fujimoto on Chainsaw Man at the beginning, but clearly super talented in his own right. And the fight scenes just get better and better. Like the most recent one had basically like a giant robot versus a kaiju fight in the city with this amazing 2-page spread. All sorts of cool, weird yokai and aliens in this book. It's fun. And that's just volume 1. The art just gets better and better. I love this. I love it. Yeah. Pretty sure that that's where he got his big sort of opportunity. Yeah. Oh, I should do that. Yeah, I should watch the subtitled version to hear the Japanese versions of the voices. I just like let the default dubbed version play without thinking it through. But I do like one thing. There's a yokai in Dan Da Dan called Turbo Granny, okay? An evil spirit. She's an old lecherous woman spirit that runs really fast, okay? Very important to the manga and the anime, and eventually she gets trapped in a Lucky Cat statue and just sort of becomes an annoying roommate to the characters. It's voiced by the same actress who did Rita Repulsa on the old Power Rangers, and that voice actually fits very well. Very well. Being in Japan kind of burns me out about anime and manga. I get overexposed and don't want to see it anymore. Can understand that. I just lean towards this as one of the better ones. No, I don't know Weatherman. I'm sorry, I don't. All right. I've laid out a few things here. Let's lay out a little more of Roadblock Sans form. That's kind of the most important element. The weapon, maybe it's an important prop, but we got to get Roadblock himself blocked out and looking good. Oh, I rarely have time for video games these days, but I did pick up the the new Indiana Jones game. I'm looking forward to carving out a little bit of time and giving that a shot. It's called Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, maybe Giant Circle. It's something like that. Yeah, it looks cool. I hope it's good. I don't know. It had really good reviews. I like Indiana Jones a lot, so I decided to pick it up. I played the first Wolfenstein, and I think that that's by the same game design studio, right? Yeah. I don't think you've seen the best comic book movie of the year yet, Robot Dreams. No? No, I never found my Switch. Folks, I need to like purge stuff. Chrissy and I have just sort of like we put stuff into file boxes and we don't always label it. And so I've got stuff that I just either need to give away or sell it like a yard sale, because there's two things that I've been looking for a while that I don't know where I put. And it's very frustrating to have done that to myself. I got a Jaws manga that I really want to have and review. And I've got, of course, the my Switch, and I don't know where I put it. I haven't had it for a year. I wanted to play that Zelda game. There's other games that look good. I could take it with me on travel, but I don't know where I put it. And it makes me feel so messy and disorganized. I feel ashamed of myself for like not knowing where something that I want is, but I don't know. I've misplaced it. I'm positive that I put it in a file box, which I just have stacked up and just has stuff that I don't use. So we just need to get rid of stuff. When we moved across the country, I got rid of almost, I don't know, just about everything. I sold like almost 30 long boxes of comics. I sold like dirt cheap, like $1,000, and I just got rid of all my comics. I sold all my childhood G.I. Joes and Transformers. I had big collections of those. I just sold all of it. Gave away like lots of toys and lots of books, like almost all my DVDs. I just got rid of it all. And it felt good. But now it's been like 11 years almost out here, and I've gathered more stuff again, and I'm annoyed. The Marvel Indiana Jones comics, like the first 2 issues are kind of good, and then it kind of goes off the rail. Yeah, G.I. Joe should basically just sort of like do a skin on a Call of Duty game, and it would do well. I do need a yard sale arc. Mike, always good to have you here. I do action figure purges every year. It always feels good to shed a lot of the mess. That sounds smart. I had an astonishing collection of G.I. Joe, and a lot of Transformers. Like both of them were things that I was really into as a kid, and I was making like pretty good money as like a kid. Like by 5th grade, I was doing a paper route and then doing a lot of landscaping and babysitting. And then by like the time I turned 16, I added working at Walgreens as a clerk part-time. And I kept all those jobs until I went to college. So I had a good amount of money, like in even like the end of grade school, all of middle school, and even going into high school. Then it became more comics than toys, but I could get myself a lot of toys, more than the average person. Yeah. The next one, I don't know. An animated comic based off a comic of the same name by Sarah Varon. Oh, I don't have like Hulu, so maybe that's why I haven't caught that one. Right now, I'm writing on my comic book while you're inking. That's awesome, Wayne. And I'm working hard to map out an updated script of like the comic that I really want to do. And if I can find the artist that's right for me, and I want like a really good professional artist that, like fits what I've got in my head, I'd like to do a Kickstarter for my comic in maybe something like February or at least spring. I think I can, like, if I can find the right artist, I think I would like to do something like maybe like a, I don't know, 48 page or so one shot comic. That's a goal that I personally have for the next couple months. Is one, get episodes of comic tropes out regularly, and hopefully, get back some of the ad revenue that's been disappearing slowly over the last couple of years. And then second, get this comic out. Those are my two big personal goals. And I'm not even calling them like, a New Year's goal. I'm just saying those are like my current goals. Because it's make or break time. You know what I mean? It's make or break time. I'm very proud of like what I've been making this year on comic tropes, but the numbers have been so hit and miss. And I keep going like, well, this one, I would think, I make what's important to me, so that I don't get burned out. But I was like, well, the Peach Momoko episode's got to like be popular, right? I mean, she's like more or less the most popular artist in comics right now, objectively. And then also, she's doesn't do tons of interviews, but the views are pretty small, and that's okay. It's okay. I'm proud of it. I'm glad I did it, but they're small, and that means like if you treat this as a job, there's a lot of money left on the table. So whatever, it's a balancing act, and I'm trying to balance it. But as a job, maybe I haven't treated YouTube seriously enough. I see other YouTubers that do comics content that are doing it seemingly a lot better. And I go, okay, so, maybe I haven't learned all the lessons I need to make this the best it can be. I want it to be good. If I'm going to make it, I want it to be good. I want it to entertain and educate people. And maybe I haven't done that yet. I'd love to back that Kickstarter or Zoop. Yep. I'm always in touch with Jordan at Zoop. Maybe. I would too, but here's the thing. One, Jim is super busy with his first Kickstarter and moving straight into his next one. He's got some big ideas of his own that he needs to do. And also, like, I would like kill, for instance, to get like, a cover or a pinup from Jim. But the idea I have might be a little more grounded and realistic than what would even necessarily interest him. Who knows? I haven't really talked. I also try not to necessarily start by asking favors or collabs with friends. And maybe that's a mistake. I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, I usually don't start there. I never, when I was like closer with like Kirkman and stuff, I never asked for like favors, like, oh, let me write a backup in Invincible or like, let me, I had a couple pinups here and there that he was gracious enough to print, but I never like asked for him to like, let me do something on one of his, it just didn't feel right. I don't want to like, I don't want to be an annoying or bad friend, and I'd rather keep some of that separate. Now, if you form a friendship after working with somebody, that's a little different. It's a little different. But collabs are tricky in that way, You have to have a good work relationship and a level of trust. Very tricky. But I will say that, like, whoever I find, I'm prepared to pay them, like a really good rate. So, and I get a lot of submissions, like from just like fans that like want to work with me, and that's super flattering. But I'm like, that doesn't make sense necessarily. Like they're not always at the right place career-wise for something like that. And I hate hurting people's feelings by saying no thank you. But I also don't want to like just waste both of our time. So it's tricky. It's super tricky. Oh yeah, I'm sure that we could at least do that. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, if I could find an artist that like drew like somebody like Steve Epting, I think that would really appeal to me. I like that idea. I'd like somebody that could like both do somewhat realistic, but also is pretty comfortable with a good amount of dark shading. And I don't care whether that means like, you know, large black ink, like what do you call it? Like Mignola, or lots of cross hatching. But I do think it would be pretty important to like have plenty of depth to like, as compared to just a lean Claire art style, which I also love, but it isn't probably right for this project. Oh, I don't know if I could ask for something like that. Mike has so many projects going on right now too, but you know, maybe I could get a cover from somebody like that. I don't know. I think that like I've got enough of a following that a lot of people would give me a chance at least once. And then I have to really like prove myself with that, right? You know, because if I produce a bad comic, people are like, he's talking out his ass. And that would be fair. That would be fair if people did not like the final result. Got to prove myself. But I do. Oh, so I told you guys that I saw that movie Werewolves. I'll say this. I came out of that feeling good because I was like, oh, I don't mean to like have an ego, but I do feel like I've got a better structure and better ideas for what to do with a werewolf story than that. And I want to do it in some ways because I feel like there are very few good werewolf stories out there, books, comics, movies. So I feel like there's just an opening there. But I came out of it going, no. Mine has better logic and better like scares and better characters than that, right? And I could be wrong. But I'm saying like I came out of it feeling good. He's so good. So good. Totally agree. Where am I at on time? It's only been a notch over 2 hours. What do we have coming up? I've got a guest next week, and then I think I'm going to take a bit of a break from having interviews for at least a little while. But on comic tropes, I've got like a bunch to do, to be honest. I've got to form the episode that I'm making for this coming weekend. Or if I don't, it's going to get backed up because I want to do something for like sort of a Christmas themed episode. And I like to do an end of the year top 10 list with, you know, recommendations. You could consider it a gift buying guide. You could just call it like, you know, finding good books that you may have missed. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you could look at it, but those are two things I want to create as well as this next episode. So I'm trying very, very hard to stay on that weekly schedule that I've had for the last 3 weeks. Trying very hard. I hope you're all doing well. I know this is like very parasocial, how it's mostly like one-sided here with me doing, I have the mic and you do not, so you will listen to every damn thing I have to say. I might have to at some point. For right now, I've got a lot of ideas. So I want to stick to a weekly if I can. I know that would help with the algorithm. The algorithm definitely kind of bails on you if you don't do quite enough. Oh, you know what? I haven't read that one, but I do like Eduardo Risso's horror stuff a lot, so I'll think about that. I used each of them this week to get issues. So it's decent and it gives you a good backlog. But I go off and on depending on like where I'm at. I like them. What a weird but cool run that was. Anne was just trying so many different things, and I really like that. I also think that was like when I personally fell for John Romita Jr.'s art. I made an episode about how much I liked his art once because it's not something everybody loves, but I do love his art. And that was sort of where I first fell for it. I'd seen stuff from him before, but that was sort of where I fell for it. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Did you see that Kadokawa is doing a global wordless manga competition? No, I have to admit, I missed that. The latest news I had was, I think, 2 weeks ago, talking about how Sony might be purchasing Kadokawa, which was a pretty big deal. Sony's been purchasing a lot of Japanese entertainment companies like manga and anime stuff. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. The nice thing about what I'm doing is, even if it isn't explosive growth all the time, my channel every day does get more subscribers. And that makes me feel good. It means that there is still growth. And maybe if I either come out with better editing or better production values or better topics, better something, or more consistent, maybe it could grow quite a bit. I don't know. But it's nice to know that there's still potential. So it inspires me to try to do better. I'm trying to always do better. Dude, Blood Squad 7 is so good. It's on a very small hiatus, but I believe goes monthly January. It might be February. It's really good, though. I'm glad you picked it up. Did I do an impression of Triple H? Whoops. I don't, though. Like you look at a channel like objectively like Matt with 4 T's, I think he has in his name. And he's been doing this for like not even a year. And he's got like millions and millions of views. And I think maybe even 1 million subscribers. Like, he skyrocketed past me. And I think that's because, he's a very successful guy. He used to have a channel about like cars or something. So he's got like probably millions. I'm going to guess. I don't know. So he can hire really good editors. He's got me beat there. I can't afford that. I'm willing to invest in the show and take a loss short term if I can get better, but I can't hire. I just can't. I wish I could, but I can't really hire an editor. Maybe part-time I could hire like somebody as an assistant as a starting point. So I want to get better. I really do. I do want to create shorts, but that's what's so frustrating is I watch that Peach video and I go, there are probably like maybe 5 moments in this that I could have like a 1-minute clip. And I just don't really have the time to sit down and make those cuts and the edits and everything like that. But it would help the channel, I bet. It really would. Look, we can call them clickbait, but you know what? I do that too with a bunch of my stuff too, because you have to. It used to be called clickbait, and I think that article-wise you can call it clickbait, but it's just what it needs to be to get eyes on your videos. It just is. I wish you didn't have to play the game quite that way, but I think you really do need to have words like worst, best, things like that. You have to have these superlatives in it. or go like failure. You have to every once in a while because it is what the algorithm picks up. So I try not to use those words all the time, but if it can sort of fit as even a question, I'll use it because you have to. So I don't begrudge anybody for doing what would be classified as a clickbaity title. I don't, because I think that is, I won't even say playing the game. I think it's what you need to do to get noticed. And a little unfortunate, but it's what's necessary. I'd love to. I would really love to talk about EC Cigar and how Popeye was really a early superhero in some ways. I would really love to talk about Popeye. I'm a fan of Popeye. I would enjoy that. I would enjoy that a lot. But I've got so many ideas that I can't promise anything really, you know? I hope I'm not boring you talking about myself so much. Yes, I need an intern. Oh, 11,000 more. I've been doing this 8 years. He's been doing it 1 year. So he's objectively like crushing it, you know? Oh yeah, totally. I love everything you make. I can tell you put a lot of work into everything. Well, I do, you know, but I made a decision. I'd love to answer this question. Let me come back to it. I do put a lot of work into it. And you know, maybe this was my mistake, but you know, there are a lot of comic book shows that are very well done that require a smaller lift for editing. I think that what Sasha does on Casually Comics is very clever. She'll pick usually like one story and comment on it and use a few images representationally. Whereas I'm often talking about how an artist evolved or an arc. I'm talking about larger subjects that require a lot more image and a lot more reference material. And that's on me. That's what I'm doing, like these mini documentaries. Sal from Comic Pop, I think he has some fantastic. He's really good on the mic. He's really descriptive with how he talks about comics, and his energy is effusive. But again, you know, he's mostly talking with his co-hosts about the comic as compared to then editing all sorts of examples to highlight everything that he's talking about. And so you know, there could be heavier lifts on editing where, you know, like those explaining type channels that are like, this is the whole story and we're going to, like, you know, do this, that, and the other. And that probably takes more time, but also all the images you need are sort of like in one place. Because you're not like, you're grabbing like a comic or an arc, but you're not like also talking about the artist and where they lived and where they worked and who they worked with and trying to come up with representative imagery for all of that. So those are my decisions of how to structure it. But the way I do it is probably in some ways not the smartest because it requires so much like imagery to represent the breadth of the topics that I cover. I've made a decision to talk about things on a pretty big scale as I've continued. And maybe that's not smart, but that's how I've started it, you know? That's how I've started it. I do have some original art. I have a few really lovely pieces. And I think I did a small video on comic tropes years ago with a bunch of things that I had. I've gotten a few new pieces since then. Sometimes I've shown it here. Daniel Warren Johnson sent me a lovely piece. Danny Earl sent me a lovely piece. And then I've got like I've got a Madman page by Mike Allred. I've got a Batman head sketch by Frank Miller. I've got Bone by Jeff Smith. I've got Gru and Referto by Sergio Aragones. I've got a Steve Dillon page. I've got a lot by guys like Tony Moore. I've got a Walking Dead page. got Robert Kirkman drawings. I've got Dave Johnson drawings. I've got a Brian Hitch page from Authority. But even though I'm like rattling all these off, it's probably less than like 20 pieces, like less than 20 pieces total. Yeah. So I've got a few. Sorry, I was talking a lot. I'm very happy. It's not a page from Gru. It's a drawing, but still, it's a drawing with color, actually, of Gru and Rafferto. I'm very proud of that. Well, I don't think anybody should send me something, but yeah, maybe I should buy it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The trailer for Invincible Season 3 came out. Looks pretty darn strong. That's a good adaptation. They're doing it in such a Japanese anime way, aren't they? Where they're literally adapting the comic. It's really cool. Yeah, totally understand. I've been going a long time. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's got good thumbnails. He's got good titles. Yeah. No, he's figured it out. Me, who knows? Who knows? Anyway, right now I'm just saying I'm trying to do better, and if I will always reinvest in my show. You don't always see it, but getting a new computer, getting a better microphone, things like that, I'm doing behind the scenes. I watch tutorials and read books on editing so that I can like figure out some new techniques to implement. I'm trying to figure these things out, and I will always invest in the show. So if I get to a point where I'm like, hey, I've got like, a profit beyond, keeping myself just like head above the water for my bills. If I got to that point, I'd be investing in something like an editor. I would. And like, an editor could like clip those little things so that I could have shorts and reels. I think that stuff would definitely help. I think that like, I don't love shorts and reels, but I do understand that is stuff that helps you on YouTube. That's what catches people. So yeah. It's fascinating how some anime like Dandadan can adapt the manga at a slower pace, while others have no budget and have to do the whole story arc in each episode. There's a lot of different ways to approach it for sure. And then there's some that are really decompressed, like One Piece, where you're like, ooh, this is taking a while. Okay, you know what? My cough is, I feel it. So I'm going to take some medicine and I'm going to call it a night. I didn't get very far inking this. I was just mostly working on jitter on the gun, and I'll go back in and sort of find ways to like section this out even a little more. But that was fun for me. Whoops. There we go. Thank you all for joining me tonight. This means a lot, having a live audience. I love doing this show and just riffing on comics and riffing on comics news, doing little reviews, doing short interviews. I love doing this personally. This is what invigorates me and keeps me excited about comics. That's all I can say. But aside from sort of carving out this 2 to 3 hours, I spend the day working on comic tropes, and that's what I'm going to go back to working on right now. Wolf down some dinner and just do some more comic trope stuff so that I got a cool episode for you guys. No more interviews scheduled right now on comic tropes. I'll do fully edited videos. But on this channel, again, it's so much more than you ever needed, but there is going to be the deepest of deep dives into Madam Web on this channel tomorrow. Me and Jim Mafood set aside some time to just listen to it while you're working out or driving or something like that. I think you'll get something out of it, and hopefully that includes a bunch of laughs. I really hope so. I hope you all are doing well. I really do. As somebody that like feels like I'm just barely keeping my head above the water with all the different pressures of life, I want to say this is like my happy place, talking about something I love, talking about this with all of you. And I hope that you guys are in better positions. I really do. I want you to have a great final few days at this point of 2024, and that we all have a strong 2025. I think, at least in terms of storytelling, boy, comics are giving us some of the best stuff ever right now. Just some great issues. It's been very hard already narrowing things down to like the 10 best that I want to recommend. But I do have some stuff to recommend come the very end of the year. Going to do a fun Christmassy thing, and just so many deep dives into artists and story arcs. I love you guys. You are all the best. Take care. Keep reading comics. Bye. Double salute. Bye.